Tonight we will keep going with the teachings that we've been doing for the last few months on the Buddhist practice called Lojong. Lojong means mind training. Lo means mind and Jong means to train or to purify. Am I getting feedback? Yeah, give me some feedback. I'm open to feedback. Oh, I was sitting.
Wow, that's a first. That's feedback. Okay, so Lojong, mind training, training the mind. Why? Because it said that when we are kind of basically what we're doing is we're trying to untrain ourselves from certain thought patterns, habitual tendencies like ego fixation, greed, delusion, hatred, all of these kind of what are called the root poisons, attachment, aversion, and right in the middle, delusion. All of these are called the three main poisons in Buddhism. So we're trying to untrain ourselves from those maybe more instinctive kind of reptilian brain behaviors and train up in the qualities of compassion, love, empathy, joy, maybe more childlike joy, but also wisdom and understanding. So the teachings on Lojong come out of the kind of middle phase of Buddhism within India. You know, the Buddha lived and taught around 500 BCE, and then he died. And then for about 500 years, those teachings eventually got recorded into what are called the sutras, and many lineages grew out of his early teachings. Around the turn of the millennium, there was a wellspring, a kind of a new wave of teachings called the Mahayana, which means the great vehicle. It was, in a sense, kind of a refreshment or a renaissance of teachings and teachers and masters, many wonderful masters of the time. The most notable is one named Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna, a great scholar practitioner, was actually an Ayurvedic physician. Became a monastic at a very young age to avert a prophesied early death. And he became a very consummate scholar, practitioner, and so on. And it's said that he discovered what are called the Mahayana or the Prajnaparamita Sutras and wrote those down and taught those. And so this was this whole kind of new wave of really emphasizing compassion. The Buddha taught on love and compassion, no doubt. That was core to his teaching. But the Mahayana really took those teachings and then placed them up on the throne or the altar of the teachings and said, this is essential. Enlightenment cannot happen without cultivating compassion. These Lojong slogans evolved out of that assumption or premise that we really need to cultivate compassion, not just wisdom, and not just wanting to become enlightened for ourselves, but also the aspiration to awaken, to become a refuge and a guide for all beings. And that's called the Bodhisattva ideal. The Bodhisattva is one who aspires to awaken for the benefit of all beings. Yeah? So these Lojong teachings or slogans, because there are a lot of one-liners, there are 59 Lojong slogans, one-liner or koans that are meant to be practiced and contemplated in one's life and on the cushion as well and within meditation. These are all designed to help us develop wisdom and compassion, essentially. So if somebody says, what are those Lojong slogans? You can say, oh, they're sayings that help us cultivate wisdom and compassion within our life, to become more of a compassionate, wise person. So tonight we are on number 25. And so that is on page 95. Up until now, we've been really focusing on kind of the premise, the view of wisdom into emptiness, and impermanence, also how to develop compassion through the practice of Tonglen, which means sending and receiving, and I'd like to loop back around to Tonglen tonight. But since the last few weeks, we have entered into the point 6, disciplines of mind training slogans. That's the point 6. There's said to be 7 points of mind training. In some texts, it's 8. In this text, it's 7. This 6th point has a number of slogans that are mainly do's and don'ts in the world, in our actions, in our life, more like the thou shalt nots of Christianity. Guides in our life for how to be more happy and wise in our life. And so we've covered the first 2, and now we're moving into the 3rd, or number 25, of these slogans. Don't talk about injured limbs. Some of these take a lot of unpacking. This won't take that much unpacking. I think intuitively a lot of us might be able to understand or guess it on our own. Don't talk about injured limbs. Essentially it's saying don't talk about or fixate on the negative in our life. The injured limbs of our life or of others. Don't fixate, don't talk about injured limbs. So what this essentially is saying is that, it's very easy to see the negative in others. It's almost too easy. And especially when we start off on the path, we begin to see our own stuff. Whether when we start meditating, we see, oh my God, I spend a lot of time in regret, or I've spent a lot of time fantasizing about what my life could have been or should be, or what a loser I am, or or what a great person I am. I'm so egocentric. You kind of start to wake up and peel away certain aspects of yourself that you might not have seen. So that's a very interesting time in our lives. I mean, for me, I got really into meditation in my early 20s, and I just got totally fixated on, wow, I really need to work on myself. I've got all these things. So then everything started to become this kind of inner journey, and then I wanted to therapeutize my friends and starting to try to fix them because I was on this major self-improvement project for myself. We can tend to do that, where when we start to uncover and heal our own afflictive emotions and so on, then we start to go like, oh, mom, dad, or your spouse, your partner. So it can be very easy to start maybe focusing a little too much on the injured limbs or the faults of others. So this slogan is saying, don't talk about injured limbs. Now, of course, there are times when it's good to think about and talk about what could be better, especially as a parent, in a loving way, help your child to see where they could, channel their energy in a more efficient way. It's a balancing act, that's for sure, and same with friends and family. But there are times for that. But also there are times for also just letting be and letting the child, for example, or a friend stumble through their life so that they can learn of their own accord. From a Buddhist perspective, we have to ask ourselves, does this fault in the other, say I perceive my friend to be selfish, does this fault that I perceive her to have truly exist out there? Is that something that is objectively true? She is a selfish person. Well, what Buddhism says is that all of our perceptions, whatever we hear, we see, we touch, we sense, smell and taste, and so on, everything that comes in through our senses, our perceptions of the world, are all filtered through our awareness, through our mind. There's nothing that you can experience in the world that doesn't filter through your mind. Does that make sense? I mean, it's just, that's where we are. We are in a body with a brain, with a mind, with the senses. Everything I experience is filtered through my karmic propensities, through my mind, my perceptions. So if that's the case, then there's nothing objectively, inherently real out there, independent of my perception. So if I perceive so-and-so to be selfish, I can't assume that that is inherently true in objective reality. I have to recognize that somehow my mind and my karma is filtering that perception. And am I perhaps seeing my kind of veiled or tinted impression of her through my perception? So I have to, in a way, it's a way of becoming more humble to our impressions and superimpositions of the world, and to say, you know what, I am experiencing this, but I know that it's not the objective truth in and of itself. It's a more nuanced thing, right? So this is pointing to what in Buddhism is called emptiness, in the sense of everybody and everything is interrelated, that nothing is independent in and of itself. You see? So the color of this rug is, for example, dependent upon my visual experience of it. My perception of it may be different than yours, and yours. Different from a dog's, for example, who may not see color, or somebody who's colorblind, or sees colors differently. Right? So we have to understand that everything is interrelated, arising and passing due to various causes and conditions, bringing things together and then dissolving them when the time is up. Not only do those causes and conditions mean that things are interrelated and more than what we assume them to be, but then also factor in our perception of those objects and those causes and conditions. That's like the third leg, that also means that what we focus on, or what our karmic propensities are inclined towards, will to a certain extent color or affect our perception of the outer world. Okay? So that's yet a deeper, more, I guess you could say, philosophical reason why we shouldn't judge others wholeheartedly and say, I know that you are a selfish person, you know? Because I'm always filtering my perception through my own mind and my own, maybe I'm selfish, and I'm able to see that more in her because that's something that I am more aware of or have within me. The other kind of commentary on this in terms of don't talk about injured limbs is that I think all of us can now I'm kind of bringing it back to just out of the philosophical realm and into our practical life, is it's kind of a habit pattern to talk about others, isn't it? And in a way we get kind of, maybe not everybody, but it's quite often, we can feel a sense of a little smugness or satisfaction when we get to chit-chat about somebody. Like, oh, did you notice she likes to steal things? Or, you know, like, what did you think about that outfit? Or, it's like a way we bond with people to talk about somebody else. Now, maybe some people don't do that. So this slogan is inviting us to observe how we might tend to focus on other people's negative aspects and just try to refrain from that. Just refrain, pull it back. And then one more subtle kind of going down the rabbit hole of this a little bit more is understanding that what we experience out there, our awareness of it, and reality, has a very interesting kind of relationship to what in Buddhism is called pure perception or pure view. Meaning that rather than focusing on injured limbs, negative aspects of people and things, drop into a deeper, or what you could say more absolute view or understanding of reality, which from the Buddhist perspective is that everything is actually perfect just as it is. Now, this is something that's hard to swallow, especially in this day and age, but that we, as human beings, we all have what's called Buddha nature. That it's not the original sin premise like you find in Judeo-Christian thought. In Judeo-Christian thought, we are sinners and we have to purify, or maybe God has already predetermined whether or not we are going to be saved when we die, depending on what form of Christianity, Protestant, Catholic, and then Judaism is an earlier form of that. So in those traditions, we are born sinners and we have to redeem ourselves. In Indian thought, not just Buddhism, but also in Hinduism and Vedic thought as well, earlier, older Indian thought, it's a radically different assumption. What is that assumption? I'm asking you. Do you know? That's right. That we are perfect. Huh?
We have it inside of us.
We have it inside of us. Yeah.
We need a little work.
But we need a little work. Exactly.
Some of it's gotten covered up.
Some of it's gotten covered up. What's it covered up by?
Our experiences, our habits, what has happened to us, that has kind of forced us to think a certain way, or shaded us in one way or another.
Yes.
And that's covered up some of that Buddha nature.
Yes, good. In other words, our karma. Our karmic propensities, our habitual patterns that have arisen due to karma. Because of karma, then we're creating more karma, and it's like that karma is like piling up over our golden gem nugget of Buddha nature at the core of our being. And so we are inherently, Dalai Lama talks about this a lot, is that we are basically good from our essence, from the beginning. We are good. It's radically different, isn't it? Doesn't that feel good? I think that feels really good. And so are you. I'm basically good. You are all basically intrinsically, originally from beginningless time, already a Buddha. We all have Buddha nature, but we've forgotten due to our habits and our delusion and our karma. And so what the path of meditation and Lojong and Buddhism as a whole is about uncovering and purifying that. Remember I said at the beginning of class, Lojong means to purify or to train the mind. So pure perception is about remembering that all of us are essentially good, and connecting with that in people, even if they're the most challenging people. But understanding, seeing them, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, with the eyes of the Buddha, and seeing that their intrinsic nature is actually good, and how sad that if they're challenging or doing bad things, how sad that they've forgotten, and how can I help them to remember? But that also all of phenomenon is energy and light, just like the physicists say. Quantum physics, all of that says the same thing. That on an absolute level, everything is vibrating and is, in a sense, you could say, like already naturally liberated. But that on a relative level, we have chairs and rugs and people with our stuff and our baggage and our confusion and our problems and all of that. That's a more relative level truth. That's true, that exists. But if you can understand or see with pure perception or the eyes of the Buddha, you're also holding the truth in your big mind, the big sky mind, like we touch in on when we're meditating, that, Bill, you are already awake. There's nothing you have to do to improve yourself, to change yourself, that you are already perfect as you are. And I see that in you, so that when I relate to you, I see that in all of you. When you start to really cultivate that, you can begin to connect with people more on that level. So, for example, I was thinking about this, like how do we actually put this into practice? And I always come back to my kids, because my kids are the ones who challenge me the most. I don't know, how many people have kids here? Kids can really bring up parts of you that you never knew existed. Like I thought I was pretty patient and balanced, and when I had my first kid, I realized how impatient I was, and how, come on, It was really hard, and it was a kind of a waking up for me. So then I had to really put my practice walk my talk. So I always think about the kids. So how do I do this with the kids? Well, I've got an 8-year-old boy now too, who is really wild and has a lot of energy, and often breaks things because he likes to kick his soccer ball around in the living room. And sometimes it will hit things like the piano or the glass or something else. And he forgets that I tell him, don't do that, don't do that. So if he makes a mistake, if I'm looking at him with the eyes of the Buddha, I can see that he's essentially good and that he just wants to have fun, and he's got a lot of energy, and it's been raining outside a lot, and that he's just made a mistake, but that his essence is good, right? So he's a Buddha who's made a mistake. So that's pure perception. Impure perception, you could say, is that he's a little brat who doesn't listen to what I say, and he's out to get me and break everything in the living room. And oh my God, he's going to grow up to be one of those horrible people, whatever, That's like impure perception. I'm forgetting that he's essentially good and pure within, So I'm thinking, like, how do we bring this into life? Also, like, if somebody wrongs us or does something bad or mean or another mistake, how do we draw out the positive? Like, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, or I can see that you're hurt or you got angry and that's why you lashed out. That's like the Buddha words, Buddha vision. Like, I see that you're good. I believe that in you. And I know you made a mistake. Rather than like, you're a piece of shit. Like, you're never going to get it right. You see the difference between that? And then, how about with ourselves? So when we meditate, we see all sorts of thoughts and habits coming up, and it can be really easy to be like, this is depressing. I thought I was, a good person, but here I'm having all these really weird thoughts or fantasies, or like I'm so distracted and I can't meditate, and I'll never be good enough and I'll never be able to meditate. Lots of it can be hard. We start to see that's fixating on the broken limbs, right? If you get too heavy with yourself and take yourself too seriously and get too fixated on these qualities, these thoughts that are rising and passing, then that's fixating or talking about broken limbs. And
ask a question?
Yeah, let me just finish that thought. Yeah, in a moment. So in meditation, like mindfulness meditation, even just like what we were doing earlier, we train up in connecting more to the quality of space, within which all of these things can come and go, but we're not identifying on with them. So it's like we're meditating with the eyes of the Buddha, or watering the seeds of the positive rather than watering the negative seeds. And so with ourselves in this internal world of the meditative path, not focusing or not talking or fixating on the negative or broken limbs, so to speak, is to allow more spaciousness internally. Was that helpful in meditation, that quality of space? My one-liner is, everything goes better with space. Okay, so when you meditate, be careful not to get too serious or stiff, or I have to attend to my breath, and if I lose my breath, like it can get a little heavy. So with the breath awareness, allow there to be this quality of space, and then when you notice positive, negative thoughts come up, you see them, and then you release, and you come back to this breath within the spacious awareness. So that is training up in this pure perception, also for yourself. Because what you're doing when you're connecting to this quality of space is you're connecting to one of your Buddha qualities. Spaciousness is a quality of Buddha nature. It's a quality of the awakened, enlightened mind. Spacious, clear, luminous, loving, compassionate, present, fully present. Those are qualities of the awakened mind. Okay, good. Okay, so time for questions, please.
Well, I just had a question about the broken limbs. Maybe I was reading it too literally. But I had an accident where I fell about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Good.
But people around me keep talking about my injured body.
Interesting.
And I keep saying, I'm fine. What else should I say?
Yeah.
I can walk. But they talk about my injured limb.
Good. And so how does that feel? I want you to flesh that out. Right, because it makes you feel?
Not the way that I really feel.
That's right.
Because I'm doing fine.
Fabulous. You feel that they're imposing something upon you that's not true anymore.
They worry to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever been through that?
Yeah. That's why sometimes when people get sick, they don't want to talk about it too much, because they know people will start superimposing certain...
I know.
Yeah, like somebody, I have a friend who was diagnosed with cancer, and she had to consciously ask and say to friends and family, I have great doctors, both mainstream and alternative, who are giving me wonderful input. I don't want your input. It felt kind of like, oh wow, but I totally respected what she said, because people started coming at her with advice. You should do this. She wanted to live her life too, but that's a really good point.
And the other thing, when you were talking about your son, when my kids were small and in daycare, some parents would say, "Oh, it's just a bad boy," and the teachers there were really good, and they said, "It's not a bad boy. It's a boy that may sometimes do bad things."
There you go. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks. Yes.
Question to follow up on that. I've got children, 2 boys also. And so one of your extremes was, and many things broken things, one of your extremes was Buddha that made a mistake.
Yeah.
Part I have, so what if the mistake was me having a vase around?
Exactly.
What if, in fact, he was just being his 12th nature? He was Buddha that made no mistake.
Yep.
My mistake was having things that could be broken and my attachment to them.
Yes, parents are definitely Buddhas making lots of mistakes. Yeah, exactly. So not putting it all on him.
Edge. And what do we find out? We do want to teach our children things.
Yeah.
At the same time, we want to own kind of our part of it.
Yes. And modeling to the children that you make mistakes too, and you can own that. You can say, I'm sorry, I should have, I shouldn't have expected you to be able to hold back when it's so hard to do that on a rainy day. Or I should have moved that vase. Absolutely, yeah. I had said, don't do it. No, I'm kidding. But
so then the trick for me is that, let's go to adults now.
Yeah.
And we look at adults that are doing things that we think are mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay, but in fact, that might be their nature to be that way, to be egotistical, to be harmful, to be whatever it is on their own path. Mm-hmm. And the question I have is, I can show compassion for their path, and I can also disagree with their path. But there's something in there that needs to be resolved for me. How do I show compassion for someone who I disagree with so much? Yes,
the question is for the streamers, is about, well, what about adults who are out there, people you know perhaps, or other people who are doing things that I don't agree with? How do I feel compassion while at the same time not agreeing with them? Is that essentially what you're saying? It's a very good question. I think that we probably feel that a lot. I ponder that a lot, especially with all the news and everything that's coming out. And definitely, I think that's where in Buddhism we talk a lot about the two truths, or the ultimate and the relative. Are you familiar with that? There are kind of two different ways you can understand, just like the quantum physicists. You can't walk around the world and saying, oh, everything's just light and energy, so it doesn't matter if you walk into a wall, or it doesn't matter if you commit a murder, because it's all just light and energy and we're all just one and all that. Like, that's absurd. That's ridiculous. We couldn't exist that way, and we shouldn't. So one could say on an absolute level, big picture level, that's true. Everything's light and energy. Everything is empty and nothing intrinsically exists in and of itself. But on a relative level, there is good and bad, right? There are certain things we should not do, and there are certain things we should do, and we all need to abide by that and practice ethics and so on and so forth. And there's the quote that I've said a couple of times in this class, which is a very famous quote by one of the great Indian masters who brought Buddhism to Tibet, named Padmasambhava. And he said that even though my view is as vast as the sky, my behavior is as fine as barley flour. Right? So we still, even if we're totally enlightened and we understand that that nothing intrinsically exists and that everything is this kind of like quantum field, you know. But even if that's true, we are kind, we don't hurt, we use wise speech, we practice as fine as we can, right? Ethics and good behavior and kind behavior, compassionate behavior. And so, if you encounter somebody that's doing a lot of harm, we need to take action to stop that. No doubt. We cannot sit back and just practice Tonglen or, say a prayer and then pretend like it's not happening. Like, we need to be activists, and that's what the Bodhisattva is an activist within the world, but also while holding the bigger view, but also having your conduct as refined as it can be. So it's like a koan. You have to practice that. How can I have the view of like, okay, Donald Trump is actually also a Buddha, buried deep, deep down in there somewhere. But then he's also got all these kleshas, these afflictive emotions that are clouding like a lot. And so yes, we need to have compassion, but we also have to have skillful means. That's on the ground. Skillful means, upaya means skillful means, which is, doing what's right and helping to relieve suffering of others through whatever means possible. Does that address what you're saying? Yeah, I think it's the age-old question. Yeah, it's like... It's a koan. It is a koan, and you'll find your own unique way. Yeah, good question though, thank you. Yes, and I'll try to repeat the question too.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to repeat the question as best as I can for the mic.
As I get older and various parts of my body start to break down, I have arthritis and lower back pain, one thing and another, so I don't get around as easily as I used to. And I find I sometimes stumble, or I fall, or I drop things. And I find the people around me very kindly want to help and pick up the thing I've dropped. On the other hand, I want to say, that's okay, I can do it myself. So, getting off the bus this morning, I dropped my glasses, and somebody waiting to get on bent down and picked them up, and I said, it's okay, I can do it myself. Your job is to get on the bus before the door closes. I find it very curious. I'm grateful for their efforts. On the other hand, I don't want them to see me with injured limbs.
Yeah.
That I can function despite the fact that various parts of my body don't work as well as they used to.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, where do I find myself in this? I want to accept their kindness. On the other hand, I don't want them to forget their own mission in the world, so to speak.
Yeah.
So,
that's a good question. I think it sounds like you did the right thing when you said, look, I can do this, please. I have a friend who's handicapped and in a wheelchair, and they say the same thing. It's annoying when people are always trying to help me. Don't help me, I can do this myself. I really learned a lot from that.
But it comes from a kindness.
It comes from a kindness, yeah, but it also comes from a fear and a not wanting to let something uncomfortable happen. So we need, as people who are more mobile, or the people who are trying to help, need to also be aware of that. But it's about opening perception, really, because if I don't know, if somebody like in your position doesn't tell me that, then I don't really understand it until I'm in that state as well. So it's helpful to communicate. So maybe you could kind of have a one-liner, so you just have it on hand, like, I don't know, I'm enjoying my challenge. Please let me. Yeah, I remember when I was pregnant, people used to treat me like I had a problem. And I was like, screw you, this isn't a handicap, I'm empowered, I can do this, and don't treat me like I'm special. But it's out of kindness, so it is a dance, and also recognizing that it is coming from kindness and being grateful for them for that, and not being angry or resentful, of course. So, yeah, maybe one more, and then, was there another hand? Yes, Tyrone.
I'm doing reverse of the handicap or missing limb because I got in a car. Okay, are you talking about the John Trump? No, but so I got in a car accident 21 years ago, and I basically was like, I'm disabled right now. I'm getting SI right now, and so that was 21 years ago. But till this day, like I still. Like after a relapse or something, or me getting all this emotion of you're not perfect, like basically I'm garbage or whatever, those feelings that come and go. Yeah. Maybe too much coffee or something. So, sometimes I ask people like, how do I look, or how am I doing, or what, and then they say like I never would have known until you showed me. I know not all of us are totally symmetric.
Yeah.
And but what's that? What is that? Is it because I never worked on the idea of like nobody's perfect, or what? Like it's like a natural reaction. Maybe that wasn't the best topic because it's kind of like not wouldn't really help. It's just I do a lot of stupid things like that, and I wear my heart on my shoulder, and I see the news, I know how I grew up, and there's like people that don't think about other people in a way of we can help each other. Yeah. They think of like I'm an animal, and what I mean, like they want you to be in fear, or want the competition to keep going no matter what. Yeah. And I don't know what I'm asking, it's just a short thing I want to throw out there.
Yeah, thank you for your question and your sharing. I think that, I think the gist of your question was, why do we, if I understood you correctly, why do we have that negative self-talk, like I'm not good enough? And is that what you were talking about? Like, why? Yeah.
Well, I guess everybody in the world has that.
We all have it, absolutely. But it's a good question in the sense of it's for some reason, whether it was our upbringing or our childhood or when you had the accident, certain things were set into motion that caused certain behaviors or feelings to arise. So what we're doing in our practice, in our meditation practice, is seeing what certain thoughts and actions that we may do in our life that cause suffering, that don't feed us in a positive way, and try to undo them by releasing the habit energy behind them. Everything is a habit, right? So I'm a piece of shit, I'm a piece of shit. That's a habit, that's a mental habit that we've been feeding. So with meditation you see, oh yeah, there's that thought again. It's a thought, it's not me. You begin to have space between you and the thought. And then slowly you can start to rest and, in a sense, create more habit energy for the positive qualities. altruism, compassion, and so on. And it's like you're retraining the neural connections and the neuronal pathways, so to speak, rather than going towards the negative, retraining and forging those pathways to go into more positive directions. So the Dalai Lama says, negative habits, negative thoughts, they're just habits. We learned them, whether it's from our parents, the world, the media, culture, whatever. We've learned it, and the good news about those habits is that because they've been learned, they can be unlearned. That we're not stuck with them. So that's why meditation can be so helpful and healing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm 31 right now, years old, and people say I look young, but I want a career, and the jobs that I had before, I burnt myself out because I'm a good worker and I'm focused, and I like to exercise while I'm working, and I don't really like to talk that much unless I'm helping somebody, and I'm looking for a job right now, but then it's like, I love working, but just like anything on earth, like people make it difficult. The people make it difficult,
Yeah.
With their own, like I can do better, or competition. And how would I find out what I like?
Yeah.
Because maybe I'm not having fun with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Until get burnt out.
Yeah. I would say to try a bunch of different things and see what lands with you. And the qualities that make you happy, being in your body, moving, not so much talking. So maybe, trying certain things that encourage or emphasize those qualities, and then just see what lands. Sometimes we just have to try things and then to see where's the karmic potency there. Am I meant to be a soccer coach, or a PE teacher, or or work in a business where I'm just using my body. And if anybody here has any ideas, they could approach you maybe at the end of class too. But I'm for the sake of time, I'd like to move on now, because the other thing I'd like to loop back around to is the practice of Tonglen, which is really the main kind of core practice that's taught within the Lojong. It means sending and receiving. Tong means to send, Len means to receive. And it's a meditative practice that's done with the breath. And so I really want in this series, for those of you who come, to get versatile in this practice of Tonglen, because it can be so helpful in our life to be able to, in a sense, kind of pull it out of our pocket and say, and use it on the spot, or use it in our meditation practice at home when we have more quiet time. But it's something that can really help reverse, or in a sense diffuse, kind of more habitual ways of reacting to people in the world. So for example, if we have somebody in our life who's really challenges us, we tend to objectify them and be like, oh, that's such a jerk, or why did she say that? Why did they do that? Well, the practice of Tonglen invites us to actually recognize that that person is acting difficultly because of certain ways that they're suffering. And just like me, they want to be happy. They don't want to suffer, even though their actions might be causing their suffering. To recognize that essentially because they're good, like I'm essentially good, they want to be happy and to be free from suffering. And so then, based on that understanding, we imagine that we breathe in their suffering and we breathe out healing. So we're reversing the kind of normal thing of being like, oh, I hope you go away, or I hope you fail because you're so horrible. We could even take Donald Trump as our object of Tonglen, and really work that edge. Can I breathe in his suffering and confusion and delusion and neuroses and weird, bigotry? Breathe it in and transform it. And my heart, I have a bionic heart, as do you, in anything that I breathe into it is transformed. It can't survive that way because it's so positive and wonderful in here that I breathe it out and I send out healing energy, the remedy of whatever the problem is that I'm seeing or perceiving in them. Now this can also be done with myself. So if I'm feeling self-hatred or sadness or anger or guilt or some feeling that I'm not able to really let in, with the Tonglen practice, we can practice breathing it into the heart space, allowing it to be there, and then breathing out the remedy. So I want us to get versatile in this. So everybody, we have about 6 minutes. So I'd like you to close your eyes and just settle into your belly with your breath, allowing the eyes to close. And first, just feel into your own internal atmosphere. Is there something you've been grappling with, a feeling, a thought, an emotion that's been kind of poking at you or not letting you have peace? Something you've been pushing away? Maybe somebody said something to you earlier today or something happened. Maybe there's sadness, or anger, regret, fear, desire, jealousy. Just feel into something that might be tender for you right now. And become aware of your breath flowing in and out. And with the in-breath, feel that feeling, whatever it might be, and breathe it into the space of your heart. Don't be too literal here. Just feel it coming into the space of the heart, transforming, and then breathing out, healing, peace, release, whatever the remedy is. So if it's anger or hatred, you breathe that in to the space of the heart, let it in, and then breathing out peace or love, whatever is the remedy. And just spend some time here, 5 to 10 breaths, just breathing with yourself. Let it be intuitive. Just breathing in, letting that in. The space of the heart, tender and open. And then breathing out, the healing, the opening to it, the remedy. Sometimes the mind likes to distract away because it's new or an intense thing to do. It's like revolutionary. So really stay with the feeling of breathing it in, allowing it into the heart space where it's transformed, released, and the healing energy, breathe it out and feel the healing energy, light, permeating every cell of your body, suffusing your being with healing, release from suffering. And then now, shifting gears, and bring to mind somebody in your life who challenges you. Maybe it's that person who triggered those feelings you were just breathing in and out. Maybe it's somebody completely different. See them as clearly as you can in your mind's eye. Maybe a sibling, a parent, a spouse, a friend, an enemy, a boss, a colleague, somebody who challenges you in your life, triggers you. And imagine them standing before you in your mind's eye, and see that they aren't all bad. They, like you, want to be free of suffering. But their confusion or pain clouds that. So imagine that their suffering is in the form of a dark, murky, smoky texture. And with the in-breath, breathe it in, all 360 degrees into your heart space, transforming it at this heart of bodhicitta, love and compassion, and breathing out, healing in the form of clear, light, healing energy, and breathing out, offering that to them, whatever the healing is, the remedy. The in-breath, breathing in their suffering in the form of dark, smoky texture. And the out-breath, breathing out, clear, light, bright and cool, healing. Continue like this, imagining their suffering in the form of the texture of smoky, dark, hot, transforming at the heart and breathing out clear, light, cool, healing, and offer that. Feeling your own heart softening, recognizing that even though they may be challenging, they're not all bad. And see their disposition lightening and brightening with each breath. And feeling your own heart opening to understanding, more space, more compassion. It may be hard in the beginning, may take time. And then releasing that visualization. And now let's just spend a few moments opening up the Tonglen for all beings, in particular focusing on those. I would like to invite you to focus in certain areas of the world that are experiencing particular hardship. Aleppo, Syria, Nigeria, Sudan. Imagining in your mind's eye groups of people suffering and breathing in their suffering to your heart, transforming it at the heart, and breathing out cool, healing prayers, wishes, light. May they be free of suffering. May those perpetuating the suffering be free of their delusions, their anger, their confusion. Breathing out clarity, love, and healing. Breathing in suffering and breathing out prayers of peace, freedom from suffering. Feel your tender heart opening, and the capacity of the heart strengthening and opening. And let's close with a sincere prayer of healing and peace, both inner and outer, and dedicating the merit of our time together for the benefit of all beings. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I enjoyed the discussion, and I hope this is helping you in some way and bringing benefit. I will be here next week. It's the week before Christmas, so come back, and we'll keep going with the slogans. If you'd like to keep the handout, feel free to keep that. Otherwise, you can turn it back in up here for next time. And the Wednesday after Christmas, I've canceled the class, so no, don't come. Nobody will be here. And then the following week, the first Wednesday of January, Tara Moulet will sub for me. I'm out of town. So the next time after next week that I will be here is January 11th. So I hope to see you again.